Hello, Shleezy here, reporting live from my bedroom studio. Today's day 4. Today we're going to be talking about depression. I just want to give a brief definition of it quick before I get started, just so that we're all talking about the same thing. Depression is a mental health disorder characterized by persistently depressed mood or a loss of interest in activities, causing significant impairment in daily life. So I'm going to be covering the stereotypes surrounding mental health. I'm going to give you guys some insight on my personal struggle with mental health, depression in particular, and then I'm going to let you guys know how I'm dealing with it, how I'm coping with it, how I'm trying to manage it. So I'm about as old as the World Wide Web. We didn't have access to the vast amounts of information that we have nowadays. It was a lot harder to get quality information. Grade school for me, we still had like encyclopedias and shit. Like we still had to like look stuff up in these like outdated volumes. So it's crazy that we can literally like Google any fucking question that we have. With that being said, I think we've really started to learn more about mental health, and with the come up of the internet and our access to information, mental health has been taken more seriously. I don't remember it being something that was really focused on when I was younger. If mental health was ever referenced in conversation, it was very taboo, hush hush. They might end up in a mental institute or like a mental hospital. If there's anything wrong with your brain, you're crazy. And that always sat with me in a weird way, because I think about how imperfect our physical bodies are and how we all have like these little things about our body that like it's not a big deal, but we have to manage. You get a rash or you get eczema or something like little like that. Like it's not like you're broken. You just have this thing that your body does and you have to manage it. You know, there's so many different doctors that we have a regular checkup with for physical things. But why wouldn't that apply to my mental health as well? If there was something wrong with how you process information, or there was something a little bit off in the way that you handled your emotions, all of a sudden you were just like this reject and you were like scrutinized, and you felt really bad about even talking about or even mentioning that you think you might have depression. Think about how many people are struggling with something that they don't know they're struggling with, that if they just knew they had it, they could better cope with it. They could better manage the symptoms of it. I feel like understanding yourself in that way and getting checked up in that way is just so empowering. I think more importantly, kids need to be checked up on, because that's where all of our stories get told to us. And that's when we really develop a lot of these very long-lasting, lifelong habits, behaviors, self-destructive things that we never even realized we're doing. We got hurt in childhood. I really feel like kids deserve access to that kind of resource. If kids can understand their emotions, if they can better identify them, they can better communicate them, they're going to be more efficient people in society. And shit, maybe they'll teach us a thing or two, because I think none of us have ever been taught really how to deal with these things. We think we're these like bad people or these broken people, and that's like a heavy cycle to get into. And it's really hard to like get yourself out of that darkness. I can say that I really had no idea what depression was when I started hearing about it. When people would use it in a daily context of like, oh yeah, I was feeling kind of depressed today, it always seemed short-lived. So like I didn't understand the complexity of what a mental health disorder like really was. Looking back this past year when I was in Arizona, it was probably like the darkest I've ever seen depression. The only person that can really save you is you. And that's also the downfall of why depression sucks. It's kind of like seeing yourself in a really deep hole, in a really deep pit, and you're looking down there and you can see yourself struggling. You can see yourself down there asking for help, and you're just up here near the top feeling helpless because you actually don't know what to do. You can see it, you can feel it, but you actually don't know how to pull yourself out. For viewer discretion, I want to say that there might be some triggering things. So if you don't feel comfortable talking about suicide and those kinds of things, I probably recommend you not continuing with the video. When I was in high school and I was dealing with friends for the first time that wanted to commit suicide, I was so ignorant back then and so innocent and naive. I like couldn't fathom someone not wanting to live. At that point in my life, I had never even like seen darkness to know even the perception of what that could even feel like. Even judging people at times because I didn't understand it. Now that I have seen like the depths of my psyche Have you ever seen Inception? You know, there's like the different levels into your dreams, and there's like the bottom level that you're like not supposed to go to. That's where all the like hot trauma lives. Up until last year, I had never been to that bottom floor. So I always felt like I knew what the lower level felt like, and it wasn't until I found this like secret door when I was trying to find my demons and facing all of my fears. And I went down there, and man, did I find some shit. The scary thing about going down there is that you do get lost. There's not a clear exit once you go down there. When you're down there long enough, you start to lose hope of even finding an exit. When I started to contemplate suicide, it had nothing to do with me not wanting to live. It had more to do with I was just sick of feeling that feeling. And I was feeling it for so long that it was like, fuck, would this just fucking end? And ever since that day, I made a promise to myself that I was just not going to judge people like that ever again, because then I literally understood it all. Like, oh my God, I just didn't realize what someone would have to get pushed to like actually want to do that. And now that I've been pushed to that limit, I feel like my scope on the world is a lot bigger. I feel like I have a lot more compassion for myself, and I feel less scared because I went down into like the quote unquote scariest part of my mind, and I came out of it. You know, I did find the light. I didn't get too lost. I have a very anxious mind. I have a worrying mind, a smothering mind when I feel vulnerable, when I feel fearful. Depression was making me feel shitty about the past, and my anxiety was making me feel shitty about the future. And in the present, I was just numbing myself. When you really go down there and you start to understand what pushed you to do certain things to survive, and you feel shameful about those things, and you lock them up in the back of your mind in that basement floor. When you come out of it and you forgive yourself, it's just like you forgive yourself, and you're just like, fuck, am I proud of you? I'm so fucking proud of you for like figuring it out. If you can get to that point, it's a ton of weight off your shoulders, because I didn't realize how much shame that I carry. I really have to thank my partner for being there for me during that time, because I can't even imagine how hard that is for somebody else to cope with when you're watching someone that you care about struggle like that. It's a very helpless feeling. But I can say that she definitely helped me want to stay. And I can only thank her for getting through that with me, because I just can't imagine how hard that was for her. Fuck. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. The number one thing of getting out of depression is to like have somebody. If you're spending too much time in that basement by yourself, I know it's hard to ask for help, but if you're spending too much time down there, you have to talk to somebody. Anybody, it doesn't even have to be a professional, but you have to talk to somebody about that. There's that saying that goes, it's okay to not be okay. And I always hated that saying, because it was like, yeah, great, but what do I do about that? It just felt like a period. And then it was like, cool, I'm glad it's okay to not be okay. But then what? Like, what do I say once I have the self-awareness that I'm not okay? Because the hard part is telling somebody. It's hard enough to even get to that point with yourself to be like, shit, I think I have to ask. Because again, that shame creeps in and you feel bad. You feel like a burden. You feel like someone doesn't have time to deal with that. You're being too dramatic. You're being too emotional. Because my zodiac sign is a Cancer, I can't tell you how often I get dismissed and how often my emotions get dismissed because, oh, she's just a Cancer. She's just being emotional. If your emotions get shit on often, if your emotions and your sense of reality, your own narrative gets dismissed often enough, you start to not take it seriously. Developing a morning routine was one of the most essential things to getting myself out of that dark place. I needed something to focus on every day that could distract my mind in a very productive manner. And it gave me something as small as a morning routine to look forward to. That consistency was almost like me throwing rope down there. And over time, I was slowly pulling myself towards the surface. There were some times when I fucking dropped my ass again. And it was like, Jesus Christ, Shle, get your shit together. I kept at it and I didn't give up on it. When I started to get the courage to tell people what I was going through, it gave people the courage to tell me what they were going through. And then you're like, well, shit, I'm not even alone in this. And I probably could have found support before if I would have just said something. And saying something takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. I hope that if you are dealing with depression, if you're dealing with mental illness in general, if you feel confused and frustrated with your emotions, I really hope that I can encourage you to seek someone to talk to help yourself navigate that bottom level. I don't think you should go down there by yourself, but I do think everyone needs to go down to their bottom level. Everyone needs to find that door and go down there. It's the scariest fucking shit I've ever done in my life, and I almost didn't fucking make it out alive. But I love myself so much more for doing it, and I feel like I'm more capable of doing other things now. I feel less scared, because it's like, man, you just did the hardest thing you ever had to do. You saved yourself. So yeah, today was a pretty heavy topic. Thanks for joining me for the ride today. I'd really love to know your thoughts on mental health. I hope that this video can maybe make someone feel less alone. I hope this video can maybe encourage one person to just go talk to somebody, or maybe even encourage you to go down to that lower level. Regardless, I appreciate you all tuning in and giving me your time. And with that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, kids.